Moon Bear Rescue by Kim Dale. This was a night nature had cast her magic over the mountains of Asia. The rainforest glowed, caught under the spell of a magnificent full moon. In her den in the mountains, a black bear stirred, stretched, and looked out into the vastness. Her heart swelled with love, not only for the land she knew so well, but for the little ball of fur curled at her feet, her cub. Quietly stepping out onto a rocky ledge, she gazed at the bright stars and thought, "Tonight I will give him his name. I am the bear that wears the mark of the moon, a moon bear, and my baby, as I see this very moment, is my star." And so she named him Star. Returning to her den, she gently nudged her cub awake. Sleepy eyes opened and looked into hers. Lovingly, the cub licked her nose, then greedily began to feed on warm milk. When he finished, they would leave the den. The energetic cub bounded after his mother, excited with the thought of exploring his surroundings. Playing with any small thing that moved was Star's favourite pastime, and this night he saw a brightly coloured frog croaking on a moss-covered log. For a curious bear cub, there was only one thing to do: sniff, sniff again, and touch. With a leap, the frog landed on Star's head, and fear sent the cub reeling backwards. Bulging eyes looked into his for a moment, and then the frog leapt down and hopped away. Star ran to his mother and stood under her in need of comfort. When he felt brave again, he chased and played while his mother watched. He was learning the skills he would need to survive when the time came to leave her. Star, lying still in the long grass, eyed his next victim. He waited for just the right moment. Then, with head down, he charged, pounced on his mother's back, grabbed her ear, and gave it a sharp bite. Oblivious, she kept on munching the wild berries that she had picked. Again, the determined cub ran at his mother, this time landing on her lap, sending berries flying in all directions. This had the desired effect, and the mother and cub wrestled until Star gave her nose a final nip. Tasting the sweetness of the berries, he licked her face clean and fell into an exhausted sleep. Life was good for this little black bear cub. Star's mother too fell back on the cool grass and closed her eyes, contented, her sleeping cub safely by her side. Star awoke to a luscious scent wafting past his nose. This was new to his senses, and he rose as if in a trance and followed the sweet smell far, too far away from his mother's protection. Star's mother awoke with the sensation that something was wrong and saw that her cub was no longer by her side. Anxiously she called for him, but there was no reply. She stood tall and called louder, but again the night was silent. She ran back to the den, but he was not there. Once more she cried out, but only the echo of her own voice returned. Her body turned cold with fear. Turning her head to the moon, she roared from the depths of her soul, but still the night was silent. Having reached its destination, the truck transporting Star jerked to a halt, shaking him out of his dazed state. Terrified, the cub called for his mother. He had been lured into a snare with the sweet smell of honey. Once trapped, he had battled to free himself from a length of wire wound tightly around his stomach. The more he struggled, the tighter it became, tearing at his small body. Racked with pain, he fell into unconsciousness. Now, bewildered, Star clung to the bars that held him a prisoner, alone in a frightening world he did not understand. This little black bear cub would never know freedom in the wild again. As the cage carrying Star was roughly unloaded, it tilted and Star slid forward. He hit the door with all his weight, forcing it open, and fell heavily to the ground. Angry voices came towards him and, without hesitation, he ran for his life. The voices eventually faded into the distance as he kept running, gripped with terror, across fields and rice paddies. As dawn broke, Star blundered unaware into the busy streets of the village of Chengdu. In a blur of lights and traffic, he dodged crowds of people and ducked away from bicycle wheels, their bells ringing furiously. The overwhelming noise made his head spin, and he stumbled on blindly until his legs could carry him no more. When he stepped into the doorway of a small house and collapsed, Star did not realise how lucky he was. Chengdu was a rural village where most people were very poor. Life for them was a continual struggle to survive. The sale of a moon bear cub to a bear farm could bring a villager as much as several years' wages, ensuring that his family would not go hungry for a long time. Despite all this, the people of Chengdu chose to rescue the little lost bear cub. Luckier still for Star, the bear rescue centre was close by and well known to the locals. The villagers wrapped him in warm blankets and took him there. Life had given the little black bear cub a second chance. The vet who checked Star's condition on his arrival at the rescue centre was horrified to see a deep, gaping wound in his stomach where the wire had cut into him. Star was quickly anaesthetised and the wound was treated. In time it would heal, but the greatest challenge was the healing of his spirit. He was now a deeply traumatised, distressed and violent young bear. But with the love and support that surrounded him at the rescue centre, there was hope. As the months Star spent in his recovery cage passed, his wounds healed, but not his trust. When carers fed him or offered him toys to play with, he would woof with rage and leap to the front of the cage with paws and claws flying. At other times he would cower in the furthest corner, his head lowered, flashing terrified glances to check that no one had come too close. Once his wounds were healed, the carers decided he was ready for release into a den. This was a beautiful place called the Secret Garden, where 3 other special care bears, Rupert, Franzi and Snoopy, already lived. When Star first stepped into the den, he reacted as anxious bears in the wild do. They shoot up the nearest tree. Star tried to run up the concrete wall and slid straight down again, losing a claw or 2 on the way. Star gradually adapted to his new home and grew to love his new bed. In the den, the bears slept in large baskets raised about 1 metre above the ground with a little stepladder for access. Star's basket gave him a sense of security and comfort, And best of all, if anyone came near, he could flatten himself down in the basket and imagine that he couldn't be seen. Finally, the little cub began to grow into a wary but mischievous teenager. People now meant good things, tasty food and toys to entertain him. Using all 4 chubby legs, he would lie on his back, juggling balls and bamboo logs, unafraid of being watched, and he stopped scuttling back to his bed whenever anyone came near. Star grew more confident every day, often waiting patiently at the front of his cage for the next treat to arrive. When it was offered, he would reach out and gently take it from the carer's hand. He loved to tease his carers too. He would sit innocently in his basket as they approached and, just at the right moment, leap out and charge towards the doors, making them jump with fright. Then, satisfied he'd shown them who was boss, he would swagger back to his bed and sit there, happily chewing on coconut and fruit from his bowl, ignoring them completely. At last, Star had learned to trust. As Star grew into one of the rough and tumble big boys at the rescue centre, the time came for him to move into a new den in the rehabilitation area along with another bear called Ashley. When they were first introduced, the 2 young bears hesitated, squaring each other up. But after a few spats, they decided to be friends. They would play for hours on end like a pair of sumo wrestlers, locked in bear hugs, rolling over and over. Then they would stand tall, their large paws clawing the air, bare their teeth at each other and crash chests together. Star had found a friend and seemed happy. Finally, a day the carers had waited and worked hard for came. Everyone watched as the doors of the den were opened for the first time onto a large, grassy enclosure. Star paused, then stepped out of the den nervously. The softness of the grass was an unfamiliar sensation to his toughened feet, and at first he stuck rigidly to the path, stretching his nose out every now and again to snatch a quick bite of grass. He would run back to the den with this prize, followed by Ashley. Day after day, he repeated this performance to the amusement of the watching carers. Eventually, both Star and Ashley learned to walk out confidently onto the lush green grass under the blue sky. Star had rediscovered the world without bars he had lost long ago. His free, proud spirit was reborn. And that's the end of the story.